So good evening, everyone. Welcome to CASPer 101. We are the Young Asian Healthcare Professional Association, also known as YAHPA. My name is William with one of the speakers of tonight, Kai. We are together the co-coordinator of this event. I'm very happy to be your host for this event. The event will be hosted in English because of the result collected by the sign-up form. So 3 out of 4 speakers will give their presentation in English. However, please feel free to ask your question in French if you are more comfortable. This event will run from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We have invited 4 speakers, Dr. Weng, Kai, Tianci, and Benjamin. There will be also a presentation from the Desjardins at the end. YAHPA is a nonprofit organization and sponsors will help us to make our event possible. Each speaker will have 20 minutes of presentation that includes a Q&A session. There will be also be 2 mock scenario led by the student speakers, Tianci and Benjamin. In the interest of time, question will be only answered during the Q&A session. You can either type your question in the chat or by raising your hand in the video call. Question will be answered in the priority of chronology or relevance. So it's first come, first serve. Feel free to turn on your camera during the event, especially if you are asking a question so the speaker can see you rather than talking to a blank screen. Finally, I would like to ask you guys to complete a survey at the end of the event. Please refer to the link in the chat that was sent after. This will help us to organize better the events for you guys. Your comments and suggestions are very, very important to us. A very big thank you to our team of volunteers and our generous speaker who are doing this on a voluntary basis. Thank you very much to making this event possible. Without further ado, please welcome our first speaker, Dr. Aselin Weng. Dr. Aselin Weng is a family doctor currently practicing in Montreal. She'll introduce the CANMED's value to us, which are the medical expert, communication, collaboration manager, health advocate, scholar, and professional. These can be used as a guideline in formulating CASPer answers. In other words, keep those values in mind when you approach the CASPer questions. She will talk about how these qualities are reflected in her daily practice as a physician. This will give you a sense why these qualities are important and hence being evaluated by CASPer. So Dr. Weng, the floor is yours. Dr. Weng?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Aselin Weng. I'm a family physician, and it's my pleasure to be speaking today with YAHPA. I've known about YAHPA for the last year or so, and I think it's a fantastic organization. So I don't mind doing this voluntarily at all. So I don't have lots of slides. I will mainly just be talking, out of my experience. And unfortunately, I don't know anything about CASPer, but it's good that there are other speakers who will talk about CASPer. So it's a pretty good day to be talking about family medicine today and what it's like to be a doctor, what you need to be a doctor. If you are aware of the climate currently in Quebec in medicine, well, family medicine specifically, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to talk about these days. As a matter of fact, there's an article that was written by my ex-classmate when I was in medical school that was published on CBC News today. That's very good. That it's titled, "As a family doctor, so much of my work is invisible to patients." So this is actually an article that was published today, and maybe I can get the organizers to send it to the participants of this workshop. So, you have a really realistic idea of what I do and what we all do on a daily basis as family physicians. So, about myself. I am 30 years old. I actually just finished residency last year. So I've been in practice as a family physician for 1 year now. So I am a new grad. So my experience will mostly reflect, my practice as being a new grad. I'm pretty sure if you speak to another physician who is much later in their career path, they will have different things to say. So that's, my perspective. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in physiotherapy before I went to medical school. And, after medical school, 4 years at McGill University, I did 2 more years in family medicine residency like everyone else. So I think the totality of all my degrees were added together was probably like 11 years. Yeah, so a lot of schooling, but I'm happy that I'm finally done and here talking to you today. So I guess that's my personal path. Well, a little bit more about myself, I would say about my special practice. If you saw the poster posted by CASPer last few days, I specialize in family medicine for the deaf and hard of hearing patients. I mean, I don't do this 100% of the time. I do this 1 day out of 5. So this is something I do. I'm fluent in American Sign Language, and I converse also in Langue des Signes Québécoise, which is Quebec Sign Language. So I serve the special population, the deaf and hard of hearing, who use sign language primarily to communicate. So this is it's a really nice service, I think, that I provide. There's nobody else in Quebec who does this. So I actually have patients from all over Quebec come see me. Well, drivable distance. It's very rewarding. So this is something that I think, is very important. Doesn't matter what you do in the future. If you end up in medicine, you really have to find, your passion. So the field is very competitive. And at the same time, with so many people in the field, so many patients, so many doctors, so many colleagues, and the daily grind, gets overwhelming sometimes. And, if you read this article that I talk about today, just now, you'll see that burnout is very common and very prevalent. So it's very important for you to have a passion. If you want to be a doctor because your mom or your dad or somebody else is telling you to do, it's not going to be good. Okay, so the studying is hard. The work is grueling. You need to put a lot of hours into your studies, your work, patient interaction. You really, really, really have to like people, unless you want to be a pathologist or a radiologist. Those are different specialties that don't necessarily have to interact with people. But most of the, being a doctor means most of the time that you will have to interact with people. So, if you don't like that, then probably not a good idea. Am I straying? Okay. What is it like to be a family physician? So I work at multiple places. People often ask me, oh, what are your work hours? So as doctors in Quebec, we are all self-employed. Okay. So we decide when we are on vacation. We decide when we want to work. So obviously there are some constraints depending on where you work. If you're working in a hospital, you might be on call according to schedule. So sometimes, that doesn't really give you any flexibility. But as a family physician who works in primarily clinics, I have a lot of flexibility. So at the clinic Nous, where I work, half the time, I decide, when I want to work, when I don't. And I mostly see the ambulatory clientele. So these are patients who, have an appointment with me. And I actually see, because I speak Mandarin, I see maybe, I would say 50 to 60% of my patients at the moment are Mandarin speaking, just because I choose to do so. I know that, from my parents, I'm Taiwanese born, from my parents, I know that it's very difficult for, unilingual Mandarin speakers to have good access to healthcare. So this is where I come in, and it's very rewarding, and the patients are very grateful. This is why I also think YAHPA is so amazing. So that's what I do at Clinic Nous for half the time. It's very, I see mostly Mandarin speaking patients, but at the same time, the general Quebecois population, and here and there some deaf patients who, come through at this clinic instead of the Montreal Deaf Clinic, which is the other place I work at every 2 Fridays. So the Montreal Deaf Clinic is the only clinic where I only see deaf patients. Actually, I work at a third place, but it's not on here. actually 2 more. I on Thursdays, I work at a CHSLD. So this is a long-term care facility. You know, when people are, you know, elderly people or people who are no longer able to care for themselves, they stay at the long-term care center run by the government. So they need, there's actually a big concern of the government. Not a lot of doctors are willing to work at these places. So that's where I work. I work at the CHSLD Quatre that also has a specialized floor of deaf and hard of hearing patients. Actually, they're mostly deaf blind. A lot of people ask me, how do you communicate with deaf blind patients? If you're curious about that, I pose it as a question. I'll answer it later. So that's what I do on Thursdays. And the 4th place I work at, technically it's not a place because it's at home. I also do telemedicine consultations at home, 1 day a week. So that's my schedule. That's what it's like to be a family physician. Well, that's what my schedule is like. The article, like I said, describes in detail what it's like, you know, with all the chart reviewing, the phone calls, the form filling, and all that. So I recommend you to read it. It's very well written by my ex-colleague. I'll get the organizers to send a link in a few minutes. Next slide, please. Okay, so what it means to be a physician healthcare professional. Yeah, the CanMed values. These have been around for many years, and they are very important to you know, the profession of medicine. You have to understand each of these values very well when you go for your interviews, when you know, are being trained as a doctor, and, you know, as you practice as a doctor. So I guess I can go through them briefly. So medical expert, this one is pretty self-explanatory. You know, doctors are basically at the quote unquote epitome of the medical chain of command. So the nurses listen to you, the préposés, the orderlies, they listen to the nurses, who listen to the doctors. So, you know, we're considered the medical expert in medicine. So, you know, study well and know your field. Communicator, I think this is, I would say, in my opinion, one of the most important values in all of the values listed on the slide. It is so important for you to know how to communicate very well, because, you know, a physician-patient relationship is mostly based on the communication. If you're unable to clearly relay the information to your patient, explain things well, your patient is, you know, first of all, not going to understand. Second of all, not going to follow your instructions because they don't understand why would they do it. You know, lastly, being a good communicator brings good rapport, brings good physician-patient relationship. So over the long term, you know, as a family physician, I have a long-term relationship with my patients. So this is a very important thing. So, you know, when you interview for, you know, if you want to be a family doctor, in the end, when you interview for your residency position, this is what they're looking for. They want to see that you are able to be very articulate, communicate very well, because if you're not able to, then you would not be a good family physician. Thirdly, collaborator. So I mentioned it briefly just now. You will be interacting a lot with other healthcare professionals, such as nurses, therapists, social workers. You know, it's called a multidisciplinary team. So you're always collaborating with others. So you have to understand how to work in a team. You're never alone, never making decisions completely on your own. Okay. Number 4 is manager. So yeah, this is another value that my colleague you know, explained very well in her article. You have to be able to manage your time, manage your workload very well, because as a self-employed worker person, you decide how you schedule. So that, you know, my schedule is what I decided to do. I have decided to schedule my week this way. I've decided to have this many jobs, this many, you know, everyone works differently. Some of my colleagues work more than me, have work at even more places, work more shifts, some work even less, some work part-time. You know, you have to be able to manage your workload, and, you know, in your day, how many hours are you working and how many minutes are you allocating to seeing each patient. Some of my colleagues take longer times to see patients, some take shorter times. So you have to be able to manage your time very well in order to be an efficient and good physician, okay? And then the next one is health advocate. This is very important too. What this means is that, so being a physician, you know, oftentimes comes with other responsibilities other than just being, you know, the person who gives out medications and gives out tests, okay? So, you know, in medical school, we all learned about the social economical status, you know, how to evaluate that, how to understand that. And, you know, this is why medical schools focus so much on the past experiences of applicants, whether they've had experience volunteering, helping people, because this is how applicants are able to understand, you know, the backgrounds of everybody, and in the future when they see patients, to understand how as a physician we can better help them, to advocate for their health. I can give you an example. So if patients are coming to you, you know, with many health conditions because of malnutrition, and, you know, it's your job as a physician to understand why they have this problem. Maybe they are unemployed, they've just lost their job, they have a hard time making ends meet, and as a result, they can't afford groceries, and therefore they have poor nutrition, therefore poor health. And so your role in the middle of this is to be their advocate, to kind of help them figure out how to, you know, go back on this chain of problems and solve each problem, help them solve each problem for them by engaging other healthcare professionals, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what it means to be a health advocate. It's very important. We do it on a daily basis. This is what makes you a good physician. Scholar. So we never stop learning. The medical field evolves and yeah, is evolving so quickly, you know, every day. And there's no way that, you know, you can just graduate from med school, finish residency, and never learn a thing again. You are always learning every day. I learn something new as I see my patients, and we say that our patients are always our teachers. So, you know, our patients teach us things, and from there, as a scholar, we have to continue pursuing our education all our lives. Okay, so if you're not a big learner, if you're not willing to learn your entire life, this is not the profession for you, okay? The last one, professional. So I think this is also pretty self-explanatory. You know, being professional, I think, is the basic requirement these days for you to have any job, right? So I don't think I need to explain that too much. Being well-dressed, presenting yourself, speaking in a polite professional manner. Yeah, okay. What qualities, personalities are needed? I think I kind of went over that when I was talking about all of the CAMET values, how a healthcare professional or a physician applies some of those qualities. Yeah, I think I went over that, and we're at 7:19. So maybe next slide, please. Final tips. I think I'm pretty much on time. Maybe I can send that link right now, and it's not a very long article. So while I continue to talk, if you guys want to like browse through it quickly, I'm gonna send it to you, Shin. Yeah, or Huilin. And if you guys, or yeah, and then I don't know, you wanted, or do you want me to just post it in everyone? Yeah, maybe everyone, so everyone can see and just click on it. Yeah. Yeah, if you know, okay. If you have time to take a look at it quickly, and then later on you can ask me some questions. So yeah, final tips. You know, if you are planning to apply, or you have an interview soon, or actually no, it's September, so not yet. So I'm actually on the, like, I have been on the committee, admissions committee, so I kind of know how it works. Yeah, that would be next year, February-ish, the interview times. Final tips, yeah, so very important to find your passion. So when we interview so many candidates, it's kind of hard to remember everyone. So it's really important to stand out. If you're able to stand out and leave an impression on the interviewer's mind, then that's, good for you. You have a better chance. Apply because you really want to do it, because like I said, you won't be able to last if this is not something you really want to do. And just know your candidate roles very well. If you have an opportunity, shadow a family doctor or any doctor. If if family medicine isn't what you want to do, that's what I wanted to do, and since the beginning. And I think those are my tips. Yeah, we'll leave the last 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes for questions.
Do I see any people raising hand? Or you can type your question in the chat. Ou si vous avez des questions en français, ça marche aussi. I guess, Dr. Wang, you were very, very clear in your explanation. Oh, Jacqueline.
That's good.
Hi, Jacqueline. Yeah.
Hi, I heard you talked a lot about burnouts and daily grinding. Do you have any techniques to like survive these?
So yeah, I think that's something that everybody will face one day. We work so much. My personal way of preventing burnout, they even started making us take courses on self-care, right? Wellness, self-care. It's such a big part of the curriculum now. My personal way of staying well is I really take time for myself to do things that I like. So every day I do something that I enjoy. I have a long day. My work schedule is so long. I get home, it's really late, I'm tired. I still find time to do something that I really enjoy, that brings me happiness. So I make myself do this every day. And it's not hard. I mean, for me, it's not hard. I know this is what I have to do to stay healthy. And yeah, I call them like micro breaks, very important. And yeah, see your friends when you miss them. And work is not life. That's a mentor of mine in the past has told me, work is not life. So medicine is not life. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
And then we do have some questions in the chat. So the first question is, any mistake you see applicants constantly make during interview or anything else?
Mistakes. Forgetting to say thank you, forgetting to be polite, acting kind of ungrateful, I think. I think you have to meet the basic requirements, okay? Being polite is the basic requirement. And other than that, I haven't really seen big mistakes. I would say not standing out would be a mistake. I don't know, mistake, not standing out. It just gives you a lower chance, right?
Then the next question will be how to stand out. Since standing out is very
well, I can't tell you how to stand out. Otherwise, everyone's going to copy the same thing and everyone's going to be the same. You have to be creative. You have to find what makes you unique. So everyone has to find their own, individuality is very important. I can't tell you what to do to stand out. The way you present yourself, the way you talk, something special about you, your special interests. Yeah,
And then question if there are questions regarding volunteering experience, and they were asking if there's any volunteering experience that's better than the others, and then extra curriculum if it's taken into consideration during the admission process.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I see the question you're talking about here. So yeah, when we evaluate the CVs, it's very important that, because we do grade them, we look at the CVs and we do grade them based on the activities that you've done. Okay. So if you're all your activities have been playing the piano, like for example, playing the piano, that doesn't look too good, right? Because you're not playing the piano in front of your patient. So, you know, you have to balance it out. You know, you have to look well-rounded. Okay, the applicants, when we see the applicants, we like to see them well-rounded, you know, able to solve different kind of challenges. Okay, so if you're always in the same kind of environment, then we know that you haven't really been exposed to other environments in the world. So, you know, obviously diversify is good. Okay, but also if you have a special niche that you are passionate in, for example, like I said, mine since the beginning was the deaf and hard of hearing population. Like I have always been interested in sign language, and this is what I, you know, what I love to do, and this, I guess, was what stood out on my profile. So everyone should have their own you know, thing that makes them stand out. So I wouldn't say, yeah, that's my answer. I'll just read through this actually.
Yes.
Somebody who messaged me privately. Hello, I would like to ask, why did you choose to become a doctor? I've always wanted to be a doctor when I was little. I talk a lot. I like people. I love science. And I have always been a leader. I like making decisions. I like leading teams, and it fits me very well because I'm, you know, on a daily basis as a family doctor, I make countless 50, 100 decisions a day, you know. So this is something that I figured out a long time ago, and I feel very fortunate to be here today. Are family doctors required to work at the hospital CHSLD? Can they just do clinic? So this is very much political. In Montreal, if you want to be a family doctor at this moment, as we speak right now, you will have to do some sort of extra thing. So either work in the emergency, either work in the CHSLD, rehab center. If you do obstetrics, you know, you cannot just do clinic if you work in Montreal. If you are in another province, in another city, maybe not. Do applicants need volunteer experience? If yes, what is the best job volunteer? There's no best. There's no best job. There's no best volunteering position. Yes, all applicants need volunteer experience, unless you have a lot of work experience. But, you know, work experience in helping people, because that's one of the things that the evaluators are looking for. Like, do you have, you know, as a health advocate, do you have in you the willingness to help people? Okay, so usually that is in the form of being a volunteer. Since you mentioned that you're part of the admission committee, is there one applicant that was particularly memorable? And how was she memorable as a future physician? There were a few, I would say. Personally, the ones that stood out to me the most were the ones who were very friendly, very eloquent, who know what they want, answered questions very well, very confidently, interacted with the actors very confidently, knew, were able to make decisions quickly in the right way, but also humble and not arrogant. These are the qualities that would stand out to me.
Dr. Wang, just regarding the time, you have one minute. One last question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. There's no volunteering activity I recommend. Did you get to choose your work schedule? Even no, not in residency. In residency, we do not get to choose our work schedule. Does your CJEP affect your application? Well, your score, I guess. Of course it does. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wang, for the information of the presentation. I hope that the presentation helped you, the student, understand the CanMed's value a bit more and how you can incorporate them into your answers. If you're feeling a bit lost, it's okay too. We have next speakers who will come out. And I just want to take 2 minutes to say sorry. We had an issue with the Zoom meeting, and then there was a blockage at 100 participants, but we fixed that. So if you have any friends that were saying that they cannot get in, please pass the message that now it's fixed. They can come back. We will allow them in. So without further ado, I'm gonna invite Tai. She will be giving you a more comprehensive overview over the CASPer test. And Kai is also one of the coordinator of this event. Kai?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kai, and thank you, Dr. Wang, for the wonderful presentation on the CAMET's values. And here, next up, I'll give everyone like an overall introduction of what exactly CASPer is. And yeah, and thanks everyone for coming in tonight. So about myself and my path, I'm currently a second-year medical student at McGill. Prior to med school, I completed my bachelor at McGill as well in nutrition. And I took a gap year after my undergrad where I wrote my MCAT, the CASPer. I also learned French, I volunteered, and I worked on a digital health startup company. During undergrad, I was involved in various research, volunteering, clinical stage, leadership experiences. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit of disclaimer. It's been 2 years since I took CASPer, and I'm not affiliated with any CASPer prep companies or resources, and all opinions are based on my own personal experience. Specifically, actually, my application to medicine. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to comment much on the application to other health professions. I will also only cover the basics because of the time limit, and I won't be able to cover everything. This presentation is not meant to be comprehensive. And lastly, and most importantly, everyone is different. Like this presentation is meant to help you and not to stress you out. So it's okay if you have a different approach than mine. Okay, and to start, I just want to emphasize how important CASPer is, at least for university level applicants like me to apply for medicine at McGill. So as you can see here, this is like a little excerpt that I took from the McGill Med admission website. And you can see that for the pre-interview assessment, it's 70% academic context, 20% CASPer, and 10% CV, meaning that they basically rank all the candidates who applied with those criteria, and like the top ranked candidates will be invited to the interview. And you can see that CASPer actually counts for 20%. And this means that it's weighed 2 times more than the CV. That is, no matter how much research or publications or volunteering experiences you have, you need to score well in CASPer in order to maximize your chances to get in. And CASPer, as a standardized test, it's something that you can and will do well if you prepare it properly. Next slide. Okay, and a little bit about myself as well. I actually applied through the international student stream. And as you can see here, it's very competitive. So pre-interview applicants, there were 100, and only 8 out of them would be selected for the interview process. And I put the stats here not to brag about myself, because I actually felt very average in terms of my application profile. I only have a bachelor degree, meaning that I was only an undergrad. I do not have like a master's or a PhD, and my GPA for my undergrad was only slightly above average. I also had 0 publication at the time of my application, so I really had to maximize my chances. So going back to CASPer, now we all know that CASPer is important in the admission process. What exactly is CASPer? And again, I took some information from the McGill website, and I've highlighted not highlighted, sorry, but bolded some keywords here. So to start off, CASPer is an individual online test. What does that mean? That means that you have to complete the test by yourself. It's an individual test. You're not supposed to have any notes. You're not supposed to have any like books or materials in front of you. And again, here are the qualities that CASPer claims to evaluate, which I believe Dr. Wang has already introduced some of them to you as the CANMET values. And I believe now you have an understanding of like why these characteristics are important for a career in healthcare, because these are the qualities that we are looking for. And a third, the CASPer test is comprised of multiple video or text-based scenarios, meaning that the prompts can be a video clip for you to watch or a paragraph of text. And following the prompt, you will get 3 questions, and then you will have to type up your answers within a total of 5 minutes. And each response, actually each scenario, I should say, so all of the 3 questions will be graded by a human grader. And I think that's something important to note. So it's like a real human being reading your answers. Next slide. Okay, so this is a sample scenario. This is just like a screenshot that I took from the CASPer like test taking website. It's very accessible. You will be able to find this as well. And in the interest of time, I won't go too deep into the details of these scenarios, but just to give you an idea. So basically, in the video, what it's trying to say is that we have 2 people here. The guy is Tom, the girl is Jessie. And basically, Tom is telling Jessie that he is having like a tough time with a personal decision. He and his wife are expecting a child, and Tom's wife would like him to take paternity leave with her. And however, the company is basically giving Tom like a new project for Tom to lead, and doing well on the project would significantly advance Tom's career. So basically, Tom is in this dilemma right now. So that's the background of scenario, okay? And then you see the 3 questions here. And let's say, would you recommend he take paternity leave? Blah, blah, what strategies could you offer? I will go into like the questions later, but this is more to give you like an overview of what a scenario would look like. Next slide. So now we know what CASPer looks like. I'm gonna start talking about what strategies that we can use to prepare for CASPer and formulate like reasonable answers. I will go back to the scenario later. So for now, just bear with me with some like quote unquote theories here regarding how I prepared for the test. So first up, I like I said earlier, I decided to try. There's a grammar mistake right there. Don't do that in CASPer. Well, it's not like critical because again, it's graded by like human being graders, and they don't necessarily take points off your answer because of like a typo or grammar mistake. Like everyone understands the time constraint for answering CASPer questions, but avoid typos. But it's not end of the world if you have one. But okay, so I practiced a lot. I even practiced for typing. Here I listed 2 websites, TypeRacer and then Keeper. I found them really fun because you can raise your friends, and then I would raise my friend who's like in computer science and who can type very fast. And then I had a lot of fun practicing. And but something to note is that like typing is not something that you can cram. You can practice like 10-15 minutes a day for like 1 to 2 months, let's say, but like don't stress out if you're not like a super typer. Like you don't need like Superman speed for CASPer. It's just that being able to type fast does give you an advantage, but again, it's not end of the world. Second tip, this is also like the most important tip that I would say, is to find as many practice scenarios online as possible. Google is your best friend. Like, a lot of resources are free nowadays. I don't want to list any companies here because they didn't pay me to advertise for them. And I also found it helpful when I prepped was to have a CASPer practice group with your friends. Back then I was the only one I know who was applying. So I found like a group of people online. Like, there are tons of Facebook groups for pre-med, etc. And it's very easy to find people to practice with. And I think it's very helpful to practice together, like with one person in the group being the timer, and you can give each other feedback, basically. So you're not getting feedback from like random people. You're actually getting feedback from people who are prepping for the test, and then they know what it is, and then they know what the test is looking for. Next slide, please. And what else can you do? One thing that you can do is to start by studying sample questions and answers. And you can also group questions into different types. I'll give you some examples in the next slide. And by doing that, you'll be able to make your own answer template, sort of to guide your thinking process for different types of questions. And I think timed practice is also very important. I didn't feel very nervous on the test day, to be honest, because I've practiced like many different scenarios already. And a lot of the scenarios will ask you to propose solutions. And by practicing extensively, you will have a bank of solutions at your disposal and won't have to come up with something like completely novel on the spot. Next slide. So this is what I meant by some common question types. Let's say conflict resolution, you might get like a very angry, irritated customer, and then there's something that you have to deal with, or you might see like a scenario where two people are arguing. There are also ethical dilemmas. Let's say you witnessed your supervisor or boss did something unethical, and then you might have to confront them, or you might catch your friend cheating, and you might have to confront your friend. The third type of questions will be personal experience, and that's specifically on some CanMed values. For instance, describe a time when you showed leadership. And like I said, what I did was I made my sort of own template to guide my thinking and my answers. Like, the template is not something that you try to memorize about. It's just like a framework, let's say like what, why, how, something like that. Like it helps you to formulate your answers. So for instance, the first thing you can do is to evaluate the difficulty of the current situation, or like the difficulty of the scenario. For instance, here, let's say if a patient has STI is sexually transmitted infections. Should you tell the patient's spouse or not? Right, this is a very delicate scenario. So first thing you would do is you will address like how challenging this scenario is, and you can do this from two perspectives. So so I really like this phrase, like on one hand and on the other hand, because this really allows you to always address the pressing issue from at least two perspectives. Sometimes there can be more than two, right? But at least with this like template, it's helpful to guide your thinking. And what do I mean by more than two perspectives? Because let's say sometimes there could be more than two people being involved in the situation. Sometimes there could be the society at large. Actually, what if there's a risk on public health, right? That's something that you can expand and talk about. And what if something, let's say you witnessed unethical that your boss did, let's say, and how that can exert negative influence on a certain field or industry, right? This is also something that you can think about. the third point is that you need to be aware of your role in the scenario. So let's say in the sample scenario that I introduced earlier, where there were Tom and Jesse, and your role is like the co-worker. Okay, you need to be aware of that, right? Why? Because you don't want to be overstepping. As a co-worker, your role should be there to support, to help, but you're not there to make the decision for Tom, let's say. So so you shouldn't phrase something like Tom should definitely blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't phrase something like this in your answers. It's very important to respect your role and the boundaries. And secondly, I think it's also important to be honest. Like I said, the answers are graded by like real human beings. So you want to be genuine, okay? Like they know it's hard to confront a supervisor or discipline a friend. So let's say if you write something like, my friend cheated on the exam and it's like 100% my duty to report them, right? Like you don't want to write something like this because you might come across very ingenuine and like the graders would think that you are a terrible friend, right? There's so much more you can do than reporting a friend, like finding out why your friend cheated, or like whether there's like a misunderstanding, or like actually like the friend didn't really realize the rules and regulations of the exam, and or let's say the friend's going through like a very difficult life situation. Let's say like someone in the friend's family is sick, etc., etc. Like try to imagine like what you would do in real life, so that your answers are like honest. And let's say in this scenario, you can also like encourage the friend to talk to the professor themselves rather than just saying, oh, I need to follow my moral values and I'm like 100% gonna report my friend to the professor. Next slide. Yes, and this is follow up with my last point. Do not assume. Always challenge the prompt, because the prompts are meant to be vague and lead you to think in a certain way or to blame someone, right? Like the friend who cheated scenario. So don't fall for that. Always gather more information before you propose any solutions or recommendations. If there's like one thing you want to take away from the meeting today, always gather more information. And how to gather more information, you can be non-confrontational, you can have like a private meeting, you can show empathy and support, like you can express your sincere concerns and your good intentions, right? You're trying to make sure like the friend is okay, you're not there to gossip. And you can kindly remind, advise, etc. Next slide. Okay, now we are going back to the Tom scenario, right? And the first question is, would you recommend he take paternity leave? Why or why not? Like in the interest of time, I'm just gonna answer it myself instead of having you guys propose ideas. But just to use what I said earlier, right? You're like at this point, you're very tempted to give your recommendations, but no, don't do it. Always gather more information first. And what do I mean by that? So here, let's say I have some sample answers that I found online, and this is what they wrote, and I think it's pretty good actually. So you can say that prior to making a decision, I will need to gather more information. First, I would like to know the company's policy with regard to paternity leave. So I would consult human resources, and I would encourage Tom to speak with both HR and his boss to understand their perspective on paternity leave, right? So never assume like, what if the boss is actually supportive, and what if the boss can actually suggest something for Tom to work from home, right? So that would be a very great solution for this situation. So just like, don't jump to the conclusion. And another thing that you could say is, I would also have a private and non-judgmental conversation with Tom to discuss his priorities. Does he prioritize spending time with his family, or does he prioritize his career in terms of a speedy trajectory to promotion. So this resonates with the point that I made earlier, which is to be aware of your role in a scenario. Like here, you're a coworker and you're only there to support, right? You're there to talk to Tom. You are not there to make decisions for Tom. Next slide. And again, you would often see in the questions, the one thing that you would need to do is to propose solutions. It could be very difficult because like none of the scenarios is black and white. If it's like clear cut black and white, like they wouldn't put the scenarios on CASPer. Like the scenarios are meant to be hard. So one thing you can do is to list all your options with pros and cons, and remember to be genuine in the process. So like I said, let's say this scenario, if you're a law intern and you found out the boss overcharging clients illegally, ironically, right, with false billing codes. And you can say in this case, I have two options in general. Right? Option A is to follow what my supervisor told me and not do anything about it. In this case, I would not risk losing my position and can still maintain good terms with the company. Option B would be to investigate and intervene and risk losing my position, but the client would get fair treatment. So we're listing like your thought process. This is you being like a genuine human being, because you know you're an intern and it's a delicate situation for you, right? But something you could say is that if everyone chose option A, then improper practice like such will never get caught out and continue to inflict more social harm, right? You can bring up your moral values as well as a law intern, but make sure to like document your thought process with both pros and cons. And sometimes you can also use if then. So like you can say that your decision would depend on etc. Next slide. And this is to reiterate, to respect autonomy. You just need to state which solution you would pick and why, and you should let the stakeholder choose. And again, you can always seek help and resources. So let's say in the law intern case, you can talk to your teachers, you can check policies, you can talk to your, your internship coordinator, you can even talk to like the professional order of lawyers, etc. And if you have time in answering the questions, you can also talk about how to prevent something similar from happening in the future. Next slide. So now we are back to the Tom scenario. So I just want to reiterate the autonomy part. So basically, like again, this is like an answer that I found online, and then they explicitly say that, let's say if Tom feels that prioritizing his career for the best interest of providing for his family and that sacrificing spending time with his wife and newborn is acceptable, then I would support his decision. So basically here, like they used if then, right? And it's based on Tom's priorities. And this is definitely something that you can do in your own answers as well. And you can even say that ultimately the one with the most insight would be Tom, and I would help guide his decision. Okay, next slide. And this are some final tips. When you see the scenario, read all three questions, because sometimes you can be very quick to answer the first question and then find out that you run out of time for other questions because you write actually like the answers for questions number 2 and 3 all under question 1. Or in other times, you might stall because you don't know what to write for the first question. And so reading all 3 questions before starting can help you organize your thoughts. And the later questions might also give you some hints. It will also make it easier for you to place certain points under each question. But again, I heard that it's not end of the world if you answer everything under one question, as it's one person who grades the whole station. But ideally, I would avoid doing that. Next slide. And don't leave any questions unanswered. If you're in a scenario and then you just find a scenario like so difficult, you don't know what to write, try to document your thought process. Like explain why you find it so difficult to respond. You can still use the quote unquote template, right? You can still address the pressing issue with two perspectives on one hand and on the other hand, right? You can still explain why the scenario is so sensitive or delicate. Like what ramifications or consequences are you concerned about? And how would you try to proceed? Like the solutions don't have to be perfect. You can consult resources. You can consult, like I said, policies, books, organizations, student services, etc. It's just very important to demonstrate your thought process. Like do not leave the question unanswered. And I think this is also good to demonstrate that you recognize your own limitations and you seek for help, which is a very important quality in healthcare. Next slide. Some resources that I used PrepMatch website. It was free when I used it. I'm not sure what it's like currently. Again, I found a group online and we practiced together. I also read the BMO CASPer book. I think I paid like $20 for it. And I had someone who's already a student in healthcare to go over my answers and discuss them with. I also found many tips on online forums. But again, be aware that like not all tips are valid on online forums. And sometimes you could stress yourself out as well. Next slide. Well, what I have done differently, I would have read less and practiced more. Don't compare your answers to those found in the guidebooks, right? Like the BMO book I mentioned, or like some other sample answers you might find online. Like those answers are meant to be perfect. They are meant to be like the perfect example for you, but it's not something that you should aim for because it's just impossible, right? You only have 5 minutes. And again, CASPer is a percentile test. You just need to score, let's say above average, right? Your answers don't have to be absolutely comprehensive. And lastly, CASPer is a challenging test nonetheless. The prepping process was stressful for me as well. And have faith in yourself, do what you can. There's more to life than a test or a career. It's a standardized test, like it does not define you. It does not define how competent you are. It does not define how smart you are, or like you are going to be a great healthcare professional regardless. Next slide. Okay, this is the summary. In the interest of time, I will just leave it because it's basically what I have presented. So I will just leave it here. Okay, any questions?
Due to the time restraint, Kai might not be able to answer all of your questions, but she will, if we do have some time at the end, she will stay over to answer your question if you have any question for her. So she have 2 minutes left. People, fast. In the chat, Kai.
As how it is possible. Okay, the question is how I would like to ask how is it possible to implicate myself in clinic research or internship? I think internship it's a bit harder because for me the clinical internships are integrated in my program because nutrition or dietetics is a professional degree, and then research, I think it's easier. You just cold email everyone. And then did I receive my CASPer grade? No, I did not receive my CASPer grade, but I think I'm pretty confident that I must have done well in my CASPer, considering I don't have like a very exceptional application profile. Does my SAGEP affect my application? No, I did not attend SAGEP here. I am a university level applicant, so my circumstance could be different from yours. Does pharmacy program require the test? This is something that you should check on the university website. I think that's it. It's 8 p.m.
Yes, so thank you, Kai, for the presentation. It's nice to hear the perspective from a peer student. Next up, we will have the next student speaker, Tianci. She will also share with us the high yield strategy that she used to prepare for CASPer. Tianci, the floor is yours now.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Oh, sorry, I hope you can hear me well. Okay, so my name is Tianci. You can also call me Tianci because Tianci is the Chinese pronunciation. And my presentation will be in English. So I'll start with a little bit about myself. Currently, I am a first-year medical student at Texas Christian University. That's not in Canada, that's here in the US. And before that, I got my bachelor's degree and master's degree from McGill University, majored in physiology. And I kind of took a long path to medicine, and I took 2 gap years before enrolling in medical school. And I spent that time working, and I worked at several biotech and health nonprofit organizations I've listed here. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I've actually taken the CASPer test 3 times, and they're all for medical school. So the first one I took it was in 2019. So CASPer didn't release scores back then, but I sort of got a feedback of how I did through the ranking result I got from McGill. They were sending those back then. So as you can see here, I ranked 520 out of 800 applicants. I don't know how you think about that, but I don't think that's ideal for anyone. So that's kind of how I realized that I really needed to work on the CASPer test. So after that, for the next cycle, I did a lot of practice, a lot of preparation. I prepped early. And for the next 2 times, which is 2020 and 2021, I did receive my score directly from the CASPer test. And as you can see, I got the top quartile for both times. I think that's a little bit of improvement from the first time. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. So a little bit of disclaimer. I'm going to be talking about how I prepped for my exam, and I did use a paid prep resources. So I want to say that I'm not affiliated with any of them. And also I'm just sharing my experience. This is not the only way to prep for the CASPer exam, nor is this the best way. I only hope that my experience can be some sort of help to you guys, but all opinions are my own. Next slide, thank you. So for the last 2 times, which is 2020 and 2021, I started prepping around 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time. And I used, as I told you, I used prep resources. The reason that I chose to use a paid prep company is because I was confused about what the CASPer was looking for. I was confused about what the CASPer was looking for. I wasn't sure what's a good answer for them. And also I wanted to learn some tricks and techniques from these companies. And that's why I decided to use these resources, but I'm not saying that you need them. You absolutely do not need them. I also practiced. I had practice session with friends. We did practice scenarios. We kind of exchanged ideas and approaches about how to answer questions. And I also got a lot of feedback from my friends who are also people I met online, also people who are applying to med school. So I thought that was really helpful. So this is how I prepared. Thank you. So which resource did I use? I used the paid resource I used was this company called Robert Astroff. I just got like a one-on-one tutoring for like an hour. They also had like an automated prep course. I also did that. And I used free resources from BMO. And lastly, I did get the practice exam with written graded response from a company called CASPer. So these are the 3 companies that I used. So I wouldn't say, like, as I said before, I wouldn't say that you absolutely need them. And I think the most important thing is this, I'm going to echo what Kai just said, is to practice with your friends, because practice makes perfect. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what I found helpful from my own experience, which is what I think is important to do well in the CASPer, is the following. So first, it's important to know the basic principle of being a good person. There's no way around this. You got to have like a really firm ethical boundary. You got to have all the qualities that Dr. Weng and Kai was talking about from the ChemEd website. You got to be empathetic. You got to be collaborative. You know, when you're faced with like a confusing situation where like somebody seemed to have done something that's like out of the line, you always try to gather more information. You always try to communicate. You always try to help people whenever you can. These are just the basic principles that you need to, hopefully you're also practicing in real life, because if you don't have these, no matter how much prep you're going to do, you're still not going to do well in the CASPer. Okay, the second one is to have a general framework of answers that you have at the ready. And this is going to help you save time, because CASPer, it's, you know, time is pretty tight. So, but it's important to not be restricted by it. What I mean by framework, the point A is basically what I used whenever I see a CASPer prompt. I think about, you know, what's the issue at hand, the 2 sides of the argument, which side am I going to pick? I mean, personally, I'm a pretty indecisive person. So I need to tell myself, remind myself, okay, pick a side and stick with it. And then you got to know how to explain, how to rationalize your choice, and very importantly, what actions you're going to do. So if you're running out of time, I would say focus on the last 3 points, which is the side you pick, the rationale of your choice, and also how exactly are you going to approach the situation. If you're running out of time, the first 2 points can be summarized by 1 or 2 sentences. It's nice to have them, but focus on the last 3 points. Also, on top of that, you got to think, is anybody in immediate danger? Did we address everybody's feeling? Did we address everybody's concern? Like, for example, if a prompt tells you that you're a school counselor and 2 kids got into a fight, okay, before you go in and be like, okay, who's right, who's wrong, what I'm going to do, like, think, is anybody in danger? Are any of the kids injured? Like, are there any these kind of responsibilities that you need to address and get out of the way first? And lastly, it's always nice to solve a problem creatively, but like your creative solution, the point of being creative is it does not need to be realistic. You don't need like a detailed plan, like a rough idea would do, like just to kind of showcase your creativity. And but you don't always have to have that. It's nice to have a well-rounded answer. Like, I would rather have a well-rounded answer than have a creative and very unbalanced one. So the last point is kind of what I said. It's nice to have a general framework, but do not be restricted by it. When you're almost out of time, you know, pick the important one. And thirdly, I know there's not only prompt-based questions, but they're also text and reflection-based. In these type of questions, it's always nice if you can use examples instead of just saying what your thoughts are. And in order to do that, I suggest actually writing down in simple language, 2 to 3 sentences, write down some of your core experiences. Like, this time I helped someone, this time I was the leader of this club, you know, just like 2 to 3 sentences that you can just use at the time of the exam, and that it can really help your answer stand out. And use simple language. Obviously, I think I'm an English second language speaker. So I always need to remind myself, like, the simplest language will do. Do not try to, you know, do the fancy stuff. It takes, like, time will fly by. And lastly, I think Kai also mentioned this, time to practice is really important, if not the most important thing for, at least in my experience, right? For preparing for the CASPer, because a lot of the points I talked about before require you to be very comfortable with doing the test, and how you're going to get comfortable with a time limit, with the difficulty of the situation presented to you, is through timed practice. So I would say if you don't have a lot of time to prep for CASPer, start with doing timed practice and get better through that, instead of taking 10 minutes to do a prompt and then try to get faster. That's not very efficient. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So what I would have done differently, that's a really good question. So for the 2019 cycle, which is my first cycle where I did really bad, obviously I would have prepared early. For that one, I just kind of just winged it, because the official website of the CASPer test said that you do not need to prepare for it. So I bought into that thought and I didn't prepare at all, and it didn't turn out well. The second cycle, which is the 2020 cycle, I feel like I went into the other extreme. Like, I was really panicky. I was worried that this is the one that's gonna stop me from going into med school. So I used, as you can see, I used quite a few paid prep resources, and I practiced less. So that, I think, is another mistake I made. And lastly, I would have started timed practices right from the beginning. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, okay, I have this Q&A slide here, but I kind of want to do it at the end. Okay. Okay, now I have a sample scenario for you. I don't think we'll do the full mock thing where I give you 5 minutes. I'm just gonna walk through it. If you want to use this one as a practice, you can check out our YouTube video and after and do it that way. So basically, for this sample scenario, you're the coach of a competitive hockey team for teenagers. One of the parents came to talk to you and is frustrated by how little playing time you've been giving his son. I think they think it's unfair. And however, you choose not to give his son a lot of playing time because he doesn't attend practice regularly and isn't a very good player. So when you're given the prompt first, after that, you're presented with the questions. And when you're presented with a question, the timer is already started. So that's why I think it's important to, when you're going through the scenario, already start thinking about your framework. As I'm reading, I think about, okay, what's the issue? Okay, it's about playing time, it's about fairness. What are two sides of the argument? Do I want to give this on more playing time? Do I not want to do that? And why did I pick that? My rationale, and how I'm going to explain my decision to the dad. I also want to think about, did I consider all the parties at hand? I consider his son, I consider his other players, I consider the overall team. Are there anybody else I'm missing? And lastly, I think about, okay, are there any creative way I can solve the situation? I didn't think of particular for this prompt. So these are the things I was kind of thinking about when I'm presented with a prompt before I was given the questions. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So the questions for this prompt are, first of all, do you give the son more playing time? Secondly, how will you explain this to the parents? And thirdly, which is a really, really typical question for CASPer, is they'll give you more information and challenge you to change your decision. The parent believe that, the team is to help all the players to get better, and his son deserves equal playing time. That's kind of a little bit more information or argument. And do you change your decision? Some people would say that you never change your decision. And I've gotten advice from other people that say you do. Honestly, I think depends on what it is. And even if whatever you choose, if you change your decision, or if you not change your decision, personally, I think it's important to always validate what this person is bringing up and then explain why or why not. Okay, next slide, please. So on this slide, I'm just showing you what I wrote for this prompt, just my answer. So for the first question, I basically I wrote this under the time constraint. So as the coach, I have a difficult decision to make. I didn't have time to state the issue, so I just did like that. on the one hand, I hope to help other players to become better, but as the coach, on the other hand, I'm also responsible for leading the team to success, and I feel the need to prioritize the team. Kind of also the side I pick and why I picked that side. So last would be my action. Like I would first reflect on whether my current playtime policy is fair. Does it reward competency, improvement, and motivation? Are all the players aware of my playing time policy? If so, I won't give his son more playing time. And I kind of also offer some alternatives, like I would offer to more practice time or coaching time to help his son get better and learn and earn more playing time that way. So it's kind of an alternative solution I've proposed in my answer. And how would I explain my decision to the parent? For this one, I think Kai also did this. I made sure I say that I'll talk to them privately and in a non-confrontational way, to be communicative, to be collaborative, to be mindful of the parents' feelings. And I would express understanding of their concern, and I would explain my rationale. I've pretty much explained what I was going to say above, so I kind of just alluded to that. And what else do I want to comment on? So the last question, you can read these later too if you want. The last question, my choice is to not change my decision, and I kind of just give my rationale for it. I didn't do anything special for it. So you can read my answers later, but I don't know, I feel like I didn't give you guys a standard answer. I gave you what I have written instead. If you like it, then know that with practice, you can do the same. If you don't like it, then you can feel reassured that this is what I did and I still got the top quartile. So don't worry too much about it. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's all my presentation. So you can feel free to ask me questions now, and I can also be reached via my email if you have any other question.
So we have 4 minutes. I think we do have some question in the chat box, so can see if you can go check it.
Okay, so where do I start?
Do you always have to pick a side?
That's a good question. I would say no. Honestly, I think there isn't anything that's so black and white, right or wrong in the CASPer test, as long as you can justify your thought. But it is very important to show your problem solving skills and your actions. How are you going to do then? Sometimes picking a side just helps formulate your answers after. If I pick a side, I'll just tell you why I do that and what I'm going to do after. It's just easier. But if you're stuck with a prompt that you don't agree with any of the sides, just express that. I think it'll be great. Yeah, it'll be fine. Okay, I see the next one. Does the timer start when you receive the prompt or the questions? So the timer, so for the CASPer, some of the prompts are video prompts. So you always see the question first. I think you get, if it's a text reflection type of question, I think you get 30 second or a minute, something like that. And the timer starts after you see the questions, not when you see the prompt. How many sentences you think is a minimum for each question? Okay, so I think as you can see from the example answer I gave, the first one is longer than the last two. And it's because I've answered some part of it in my first one. I think some advice I've gotten is to have a balanced answer, but I would say maybe a minimum of 3 to 5 would be good. Okay. I got a question that said, how many times can you take the CASPer test? So I'm actually not sure about that. I believe you can only take it once during each cycle, but I'm not sure. I'll have to check and get back to you. Does the CASPer test come up in French?
Yes, it does. We have Benjamin who will be presenting French afterwards.
Okay, is it a good idea to relate a lot of the personal experience when answering these questions? I think that's a great idea, because the raters will see millions of answers, and one way to make your answer stand out is to paint a picture of who you are, like make them think or like realize that it's person on the other side of the string. And the challenge with that is that you're run out of time. That's why I think a good way to do this is to look at the core value that the CASPer test is testing for, and then write 2 to 3 sentences of your personal experience that demonstrate the value so that you can have it handy and use it during the test. Okay, it's my time up.
And yeah, your time is up. So thank you, Tianci. That was a very helpful presentation from you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I'm sure that there's a lot of us here who have learned something useful from it. Next up, we have our long-awaited French speaker, Benjamin, from the University of Montreal. So if you are planning to write your CASPer in French, this is the presentation for you that you don't want to miss. So Benjamin, the floor is yours.
All right, so I'll be doing it in French. Je vais passer en français. Je vais commencer par me présenter. On peut passer à la prochaine slide. Fait que je suis étudiant en première année de médecine à l'Université de Montréal. J'ai fait un bac en stage en informatique. Fait que dans le fond, j'ai fait le CASPer 2 fois. Puis ça a été des expériences complètement différentes. Fait que la première fois, j'étais rentré comme sans préparation. J'avais cru pas se préparer si tu as une bonne personnalité, comme tu pourras le faire sans problème. Ben, j'ai regretté, c'est vraiment un désastre. Sinon, la deuxième fois que j'ai fait, je suis beaucoup mieux préparé et j'espère que juste en partageant les trucs ou des choses que j'ai fait pour m'améliorer, ça va vous aider. On peut passer à la prochaine slide. Ouais. Fait que je pense que les autres en ont pas mal parlé, comme de c'est quoi. Je vais juste parler de pour moi, c'était quoi surtout. Selon moi, c'est surtout comme ils évaluent tes aptitudes, avec tes enjeux éthiques, prise de décision. Il n'y a pas vraiment de bonne réponse. C'est surtout des prises de décision, des prises de position qui sont souvent comme difficiles. Mais ce qui compte vraiment, c'est la façon qu'on approche ces problèmes, qu'on examine, qu'on raisonne et qu'on justifie. Et que si vous pouvez démontrer que vous êtes capable de faire ça, c'est que vous allez bien performer. Fait que même si la première fois que je l'ai fait après le cégep, c'était comme vraiment mauvais, il y a plein de questions comme j'ai pas eu le temps de répondre. J'ai quand même aimé faire le test, c'est quand même une belle expérience. Mais sinon, pour la deuxième fois, avoir comme un plan de préparation, c'est sûr que ça m'a beaucoup aidé. Et juste pour mentionner aussi que j'ai fait le test comme dans 2 différentes langues. Puis la première fois que je l'ai fait, c'était en anglais et la deuxième fois, c'était en français. Fait que ça peut jouer dans comment vous vous préparez. Fait que le format général, parfait. Non, c'est bon. Sinon, comment je m'étais préparé? Personnellement, j'ai pas vraiment utilisé de ressources en ligne. C'était surtout en parlant des amis ou des personnes qui faisaient le test en même temps que moi ou qui l'avaient déjà fait avant. Fait que c'est avec beaucoup de discussions, comme ça devient plus facile de s'échanger des idées. Fait que si vous posez des questions entre vous, et comme on dit, on bounce ideas, comme tu peux voir le point de vue de d'autres personnes puis peut-être ajouter quelques grains de ces réponses à les tiennes. Ça a beaucoup aidé. Et vraiment, juste faire la préparation comme avec les normes du test. Fait que faire le 30 secondes pour lire la question, après avoir 5 minutes pour répondre aux 3 questions. Parce que 5 minutes, ça a l'air quand même long, mais en réalité, quand on est en train de réfléchir, ça passe vraiment vite. Faire les normes réelles, puis juste s'habituer à pouvoir réfléchir rapidement, puis écrire ce qu'on pense. Sinon, pour le temps de préparation, j'ai pas été vraiment intense là-dessus. C'est surtout comme 3 sessions de genre 2 heures. Comme j'ai fait peut-être une fois, je me suis échangé des idées. L'autre fois, c'est un test pratique ou genre moi-même. Puis une autre fois, c'était quelqu'un qui l'avait déjà fait qui me supervisait dans le fond. Puis après, il me donnait de la rétroaction pour voir ce que j'avais bien fait, ce que j'avais mauvais fait. C'est pas ça. Fait que parlant de préparation, comme j'ai un petit scénario pratique dans la prochaine slide. je vois qu'on n'a pas vraiment fait la démo. Mais on peut essayer de la faire. Je pense qu'on a le temps. Fait que si vous voulez prendre, je peux timer 5 minutes après qu'on lise ça, puis vous pourrez répondre aux questions.
Donc
Fait que
là, on
vous
va
êtes sûr que-
prendre... Ouais, là,
correct?
tu veux-tu inviter quelqu'un pour le faire? On va nommer quelqu'un,
Ah,
puis il va lire la question, puis il va répondre à la question en même temps.
Ah, OK, bien sûr. Ça peut
On
marcher.
aura besoin d'un volontaire. Donc, ça sera votre chance unique de pratiquer et va voir des rétroactions gratuites de la part de Benjamin. Donc, on n'a pas de volontaire. On a Mathieu, un volontaire. Come on.
Ah, je sais que
OK,
c'est
bon.
vraiment dur. Ah,
C'est correct. Il n'y a pas de mauvaise réponse. OK.
Ça me dérange pas s'il n'y a pas de
OK.
volontaire.
Donc, on va prendre le timer. Tu auras 5 minutes pour répondre à la question. Donc, on va te laisser lire la question d'abord.
C'est bon?
C'est bon?
Ouais.
T'es prêt? Donc,
Ouais.
pas de stress. Donc, 5 minutes et c'est parti. Il te reste 4 minutes. Trois minutes. Si tu as fini plus tôt, tu peux dire ta réponse plus tôt. C'est correct aussi. Deux minutes. Une minute et 30 secondes. Es-tu prêt avec tes réponses? Veux-tu essayer? OK.
D'accord.
D'accord, vas-y. Il n'y a pas de mauvaise réponse. On fait juste essayer ici.
Mais si je réponds à l'enfant, en fait, mais d'abord, comme on dit, j'aimerais chercher plus d'informations. Alors, peut-être que je parlerai aux animateurs pour savoir pourquoi est-ce que les parents ne veulent pas qu'elle se baigne. Je demanderai à l'enfant aussi, pourquoi est-ce que tes parents ne sont pas d'accord? Et là, dépendamment de la raison, ça se peut qu'on pourrait arriver à un compromis si possible. Par exemple, ici, c'est un problème de santé, mais là, on pourrait penser à organiser des activités qui pourraient pas nuire, par exemple, à la santé de l'enfant, si jamais c'est ça, pour ça qu'il n'a pas le droit de se baigner. J'aimerais aussi demander à l'enfant si se baigner, c'est vraiment ce qu'elle veut, parce que je comprends que c'est pas vraiment tous les enfants qui veulent se baigner quand même. Et je sais que ce serait plus difficile, mais ce serait peut-être possible de parler aussi aux parents directement pour savoir ce qu'il y a vraiment, parce que moi, j'aimerais pas prendre de décision avant de savoir le pourquoi est-ce qu'il n'a pas le droit d'aller dans l'eau. Et ce que je préfère, par exemple, pour inclure l'enfant, c'est que ça m'est déjà arrivé personnellement que moi, j'avais pas le droit d'aller dans la piscine, mais ce qu'on a fait, c'est qu'on pourrait, par exemple, faire des petits concours amicaux entre les enfants d'un groupe, comme, je sais pas, comme, qui peut nager le plus vite d'une bord de la piscine à l'autre, des jeux, et on préfère que la fille, elle pourrait regarder au bord de la piscine, elle pourrait être la juge un peu. Alors, ou sinon, ouais, comme ça, elle pourrait quand même participer d'une façon sans désobéir un peu à ses parents. Le troisième point, c'est que la culture religion, d'abord, c'est parce qu'il y en a beaucoup, ça crée alors certaines normes, comme pareil, je n'ai pas un exemple, mais c'est sûr que j'en aurais. Il y a des tabous, par exemple, peut-être pas dans notre société, mais par exemple, dans certaines sociétés, une femme doit se marier à un âge très, très jeune, sinon ce ne serait pas bien vu, ou même au Québec, il y a des années comme 50, c'était pas bien d'avoir des avortements, de ne pas se marier. Comme je disais tantôt, la culture et la religion, ça crée des normes, des opinions différentes, ce qui pourrait être enrichissant, mais ce qui crée aussi des controverses et des conflits. Par exemple, dans mon école, on parlait d'Israël et Palestine, mais il y a une personne qui était comme plus du côté de la Palestine, il y en a d'autres qui étaient, par exemple, qui ont de la famille en Israël, qui ne sont pas d'accord. Et même, ça peut créer comme des trends, même des disputes qu'on voit éclater souvent dans les commentaires YouTube et tout. Et ouais, c'est ça ma réponse.
Je vais commencer par dire merci pour ton courage. C'est vraiment bien que tu sois porté volontaire. Et je veux te dire que je suis vraiment impressionné par tes réponses. J'ai aimé, comme pour la première question, comment tu n'as pas comme sauté sur, comme tu n'as rien assumé. Comme souvent, en lisant les 3 questions, tu n'as pas assumé, c'est la religion, mais ça ne disait pas dans la question. Fait que j'ai aimé comment tu allais chercher plein d'informations, que tu as cherché un compromis. Pour la dernière question, je pense que la façon qu'il a donné comme des exemples de comment, dans l'expérience personnelle aussi, comment ça peut jouer là-dedans, je pense que ça, c'est vraiment bon. Pour la troisième, j'ai l'impression que tu as quand même beaucoup parlé de... comme moi, personnellement, j'aurais plus parlé de comme le Québec en tant que tel. Fait comme on est pas mal un État laïque, comme il y a des cultures différentes, il y a des attitudes de vie différentes. Fait que c'est sûr, il y a plus de richesse, il y a aussi plus de diversité, il y a aussi plus de friction. Fait que ça, c'est comme selon moi, mais je pense que si tu as avec des exemples comme plus globaux, ça pourrait faire aussi l'affaire. Je pense que en général, c'est vraiment bon. Et si tu as eu le temps d'écrire tout ça en 5 minutes, c'est vraiment bravo, parce que je sais que mes réponses n'étaient pas aussi détaillées.
Alors, si je comprends bien, votre conseil, ce serait pour la troisième, de parler plus du Québec.
Ouais, mais si tu as le temps, parce que c'est vraiment comme une question globale. Fait que comme parler genre globalement comme dans le monde, mais aussi plus localement. Parce que c'est vraiment comme notre société. C'est la
Aurais-vous
façon que j'ai
des
compris.
points améliorés pour moi dans les deux premières questions aussi?
Mais pour la première question, j'aurais comme juste commencé par dire que comme demander à l'enfant si ça la dérangeait. Parce que si l'enfant, comme ça ne le dérange pas d'être assis là, puis elle veut, genre juste être assis là, comme il n'y a plus grand problème. Juste commencer par lui demander comme si ça la dérange. Après, peut-être que genre lui demander après ses parents, ça pourrait être comme un peu de overreaching. Fait que c'est pour ça, genre, il faudrait genre le consentement ou parler au moniteur en premier, comme tu as dit. Mais sinon, je pense que c'est une réponse comme pas mal solide là. Ouais.
Merci
Pour
beaucoup.
le deuxième, je pense que c'est super là, comme tu as donné un exemple. Je pense que c'est plus essayer de trouver des solutions puis donner des exemples.
Merci.
Bon. On va passer à la prochaine. Fait juste comme quelques trucs que moi j'ai utilisés ou que je vous conseille de faire si vous voulez. Prendre ça pour à moins de phrase possible, genre avoir assez de pratique pour que vous soyez confiant. Fait que ça va dépendre de chacun d'entre vous, comme à quel point vous êtes confortable. Je sais que certaines personnes vont avoir besoin de plus de pratique ou de lire plus de choses en ligne. C'est totalement correct. Juste faire assez pour que vous soyez confortable, confiant, que vous n'ayez pas de doute dans votre tête en rentrant dans le test. Puis sinon, comme une pause au milieu de comme 15 minutes ou genre 10 minutes. Prendre avantage de cette pause, comme pour reset. Comme si jamais le test va mal, la première moitié, c'est vraiment le temps de comme factor reset, comme on dit, puis juste recommencer à zéro, parce qu'il reste encore la moitié du test. Fait que si comme la première moitié, c'est pas si bon, la deuxième moitié, c'est vraiment bon, mais comme vous allez quand même avoir bien réussi en général. Puis des fois, comme on a l'impression de ne pas en avoir besoin, mais après, comme 3 questions supplémentaires, c'est comme, j'aurais aimé ça prendre ma pause. Fait que je pense que c'est toujours bien d'aller aux toilettes ou quoi que ce soit. Puis sinon, juste ici tout le temps. Fait que, on avait dit qu'il y a comme 30 secondes pour lire la question. Fait que déjà, former des idées dans sa tête puis pas passer aux questions tout de suite. Fait que si tu as déjà comme des petites idées, après ça devient plus facile de les mettre sur papier. Puis aussi de ne pas rester pogné. Fait que des fois, tu vois une question, tu bloques, juste passe à la prochaine, puis tu auras d'autres idées qui vont venir. Puis finalement, comme ça serait un peu à la langue, juste être confortable dans le langage que tu l'écris. Comme moi, après l'université, j'avais fait tout ça en anglais, j'avais fait le cégep en anglais. Et retourner au français et l'écrire, comme je n'avais pas écrit, ça faisait 3 ans. Puis l'écrire ça, comme ça peut se perdre. Fait que juste être capable de parler, comme se créer des idées dans cette langue et pas avoir besoin de traduire dans ta tête. Je pense que c'est sûr, ça peut beaucoup aider. Puis juste être confortable avec les accents, avec la ponctuation. Et sinon, c'est ça. Écrire des phrases simples. Si tu peux pas faire des phrases complètes et vraiment syntaxiquement parfaites, juste faire une liste. Puis, tant que tes idées te passent, je pense que les correcteurs vont bien comprendre. Je pense que c'est pas mal tout ce que j'avais à vous dire. Si jamais vous avez des questions, vous êtes bienvenus. Je pense qu'on a 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Et s'il n'y en a pas, ben parfait.
Ça veut dire que ça a été très clair. Et merci, Dihan, pour ta participation.
Pas de problème.
Ça a été un peu awkward, cette personne.
Donc, je pense que... question. Est-ce que tu as des conseils pour des scénarios où il faut enregistrer une réponse vidéo?
Moi, j'ai jamais eu ça. Ben, j'ai pas eu les 2 fois que j'ai fait. Fait que je sais pas trop si Huilin, tu as des conseils.
Je pense que l'enregistrement de vidéo, c'est nouveau cette année. Donc, ça serait difficile pour un de nous de répondre à cette question-là.
OK, mais je pense que sinon, juste généralement, comme, juste rester calme puis prendre tout le temps que tu peux pour comme te faire une idée de ce que tu vas dire pour avoir quelque chose comme dès que ça commence puis pas perdre de temps. Est-ce qu'on peut écrire en point de forme? Ouais, moi j'ai fait comme mes affaires en point de forme, comme une liste. Et comme j'ai été accepté, fait que je pense pas que ça a été un problème. Est-ce que dans le vrai test, on a plus accès à la mise en situation qu'on doit répondre aux questions? Ça, je m'en souviens plus. Je sais que les vidéos, tu as plus accès à ta vidéo. Peut-être que quand c'est du texte, tu peux encore le voir. Mais ouais, je suis pas sûr si quelqu'un a plus d'infos, il s'en souvient.
D'autres questions? Comment on peut visualiser, oh, ok, ça c'est pour l'enregistrement de la conférence d'aujourd'hui, ça va être sur YAHPA, ça va être sur le YouTube account de YAHPA. Donc, il faut aller sur YouTube, taper YAHPA, puis là, dans quelques jours, on va le uploader.
Okay. On doit se préparer combien de temps à l'avance, mais ça va dépendre de toi. C'est sûr, si tu as besoin de pratiquer comme ton typing, ta vitesse de taf, ça va prendre comme plus de temps que comme une semaine. Peut-être faire genre une fois ou quelques jours. Mais sinon, juste avoir assez de pratique pour que tu sois confiant. Moi, je dirais avoir comme 2 semaines au moins pour qu'il y ait des idées plus mijotées dans ta tête. Mais ça n'a pas besoin d'être 2 semaines étant juste comme quelques sessions. Puis, ouais. Est-ce que c'est censé de toucher ou de garder notre vraie idée pour les problèmes de religion? C'est sûr qu'idéalement, le CASPer, tu veux avoir comme ce que tu penses vraiment, c'est pas de personnalité. Mais comme moi, si je veux le dire, puis tu as l'impression que tes idées sont controversées, peut-être les garder pour toi puis avoir une idée plus générale. Parce que des fois, c'est dur de... ouais, des fois, ça peut être comme politically incorrect et je sais pas si c'est la meilleure façon de répondre. On peut prendre des notes. Je pense que tu as des notes comme des citations, puis après, écrire l'examen. Ça, je sais pas. Mais je pense que ouais, quand tu fais le papier. Mais honnêtement, je ne vais pas te mislead. Y a-t-il des conseils pour la cote R? Ben, juste sors la meilleure cote R possible. Mais sinon, comme pas trop y penser, comme vous faites le mieux que vous pouvez, comme au cégep. Mais le CASPer, comme ça compte full, c'est genre 50%. Fait que même si comme t'as genre 34 puis on est mis à 36, comme le CASPer puis l'entrevue après, comme ça va décider beaucoup plus. Comme je me souviens, moi j'avais une cote comme vraiment bonne en sortant du cégep, mais après mon CASPer, comme ça a été terrible, puis j'ai quand même pas eu d'entrevue. Fait que, ouais, il y a toujours des chances pour tout le monde.
Donc, je pense que ça va être tout. Merci beaucoup, Benjamin. So thank you very much, Benjamin, for sharing your experience and tips with us. Your presentation is very informative, and our student who will take the CASPer test in French. So this will be all for our virtual event, CASPer 101. A big thank you for Dr. Wang, Kai, Tianci, and Benjamin, to all of you for coming. We hope that the information shared by our guest speaker will be helpful for your CASPer experience. Before we end tonight, I would like to invite our last guest, Celia Lai. She's a presenter from the Desjardins Bank, one of our sponsors for tonight, to give a little speech. Celia, are you there? I think Celia is taking a bit her time, but if ever, guys, please don't forget about the survey. It's very important, the survey. It will help us to improve on our future conferences. And if Celia is not here, I would just like to thank you for all our sponsors, Kingfa, Presotti, Pâtisserie Coco Bun, Coco, and Tiki Cafe, Ele College, and Desjardins and all the YAHPA volunteers. And I think Kai is still in the, no? Okay, so that's all for the evening tonight. Thank you very much and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Oh yeah, so if Kai is here, if you guys have any specific question for Kai, she can take an extra 5 minutes to answer you guys. Otherwise, it was a pleasure to host the event for you guys and see you guys next time. Will there be more conferences upon regarding YAHPA? I don't think so. This will be the only one for this year
For CASPer.
for CASPer.
But you can follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. We'll have like other events and they will be posted there.
Yeah, so last year we have one that's like healthcare as a glance. So it was different. We have 14 different healthcare professionals coming on virtual online to present their professions. And this year in Angrignon, we had one in-person event where we invited over 40 healthcare professionals to come and share, and you can talk to them one-on-one. So it will be very beneficial for all of you guys to follow us on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, WeChat, if you have WeChat.
Yeah, and then if you want to volunteer with YAHPA, feel free to shoot us a message on Facebook as well.
And since I see that there's still 38 people here, I'm gonna say about the survey again, because every time we only have 5 people who complete the survey. So the survey will help us a lot. If not, I will end the event if there's no question for Kai or me.
Okay, perfect. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.